Hi, this is the Cost Plus video on the hard drive replacement for the controllers at the stores. What you're looking at right now is a controller at the store with the cover removed. The controller with the cover basically looks like this. It has a plastic cover on it. The controllers that we're mostly going to be working with here at the stores, I believe, are going to be of this type. It's very possible that we may have some controllers that look like this, but the same basic theory is going to apply. So here's the controller, and we're now going to show you how to disassemble this chassis, what parts to pull out and what parts to install. We are installing a 40-pin flash IDE module. Basically looks like this. It's a very small piece of equipment. You will have this, and you will have the power adapter for this module. Looking at the controller, when you first walk in, first thing you're going to have to do is turn it off. This controller here is actually running Windows. The controllers at the store will actually be running 4690. It's going to be the same deal. You basically walk up to the controller. The power button will be here once you take all the initial covers off. Press and hold the button, and the machine will turn off. At that point, you can see everything's gone. We'll go ahead and disconnect everything from the back. And all I'm doing is disconnecting a keyboard, video, and power. Keyboard, video, and power. This unit has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws on the top and 1 on the side. All screws can be identified by a small arrow. So we'll go ahead and remove these screws. When sliding this cover off, it does notch in here, so you're going to have to slide it back. As long as I got all the screws removed here, which I did. Which I didn't. Okay, one more to go. Now this should slide back, and we can remove the cover from the controller. We're going to be working in this area of the controller. If you want to make it a little bit easier to work in so you have more room, you can remove this cover, and you can go ahead and get rid of this. And that kind of leaves us this area. First thing we need to do is remove the CD-ROM. We'll go ahead and pull power and pull the IDE cable. There'll be 2 screws on top. So we have 2 screws on the very top of the drive cage, which hold the CD-ROM in. We'll take these 2 screws out, and once those 2 screws are off, we should be able to slide the CD-ROM back and remove it from the chassis. So to remove the drive cage, you're going to need to go ahead and pull this cable from the front. And you can just go ahead and use your nail here to get this out. That goes ahead and removes that cable, which in turn will allow us a little room inside the chassis to remove the drive cage. There will be 2 screws here in the very front. Once those 2 screws are removed, we should be able to slide the drive cage forward. And pull it out. So now the drive cage has been removed. Looking at the drive cage, the drive on the end is what we consider to be drive H0, which is the primary. The drive in the center of the cable is drive H1, which is the secondary drive. This is the drive that we're actually going to be replacing. So we can go ahead, disconnect this drive, and that now has nothing connected, and take out whatever screws are necessary to pull this drive. This drive actually only has one screw, as we've set it up this way. The drive is now removed. We only have our primary drive. Go ahead and reseat back into the chassis. This can be a bit difficult as there is a tab on the bottom where the chassis will need to lock into. Okay, so we have the drive chassis back in. We're going to go ahead and put 2 screws on the front to make sure that the chassis is locked in. And that's the first screw. And that's the second screw. Now we're going to go ahead and remove all the cables for the CD-ROM, even though we'll leave it installed in the chassis. And the reason for that is that this unit needs to plug in directly into one of the IDE channels. So we'll go ahead, we'll pull the cable for the CD-ROM, and we will take the 4 GB flash drive and plug it into that slot. You must make sure that the switch on top of this drive is set at master. It will come that way. You shouldn't have to make any changes. Just make sure it's at master. This top plug is where the power will plug into. So we're going to go ahead and plug this into the second IDE channel. We're going to take the power adapter that comes with this and plug it into the power that was originally for the CD-ROM. It's that. Then we're going to take the power cable here, it's a positive and a negative, and plug that right into the very top of the flash drive. It's very small, but once you get it in there, it'll be pretty easy. So that's that. We've got all that plugged back in. At this point, we can go ahead and take our initial cable that we first unplugged, thread it back through the chassis and back out through the front. Make sure that cable's tucked in there nice and neat. And then plug the cable back in. Cable's plugged back in. At this point we will take our CD-ROM, slide it back into the chassis, place both screws back in the CD-ROM to secure it to the chassis. And our machine is assembled and should be ready to run. Make sure you place any components back in the chassis that you originally removed. At this point we only have this one rail and the cover for the fan. This will go back in the top, slide forward, place all screws in marked areas with arrows, plug it back in, power the machine up, and you should be complete.